It's lovely to see everyone here today. We're all here for the webinar. We'll just wait a couple of seconds for people to dial in. I think there are people coming in. We've got a really great number of registrants joining the webinar, so just let's give them a few seconds and then we'll kick off. But lovely to see you all, and thank you all for coming in on this very cold, windy Melbourne day. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Australian Centre for AI and Medical Innovation webinar, focused on AI disrupting the workplace. It's nice to see you all online. We're here in La Trobe's Media Hub and very excited to be streaming out to you today. My name is Jane Leong and I'm the Director, Development at the Australian Centre for AI and Medical Innovation, also known as ACAMI. I'm your host for today's webinar event, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you all with us. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. We are on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I acknowledge the lands that you may be dialing in from across Australia, and I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend my respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us. Today's webinar will explore the impact and opportunities of artificial intelligence on workforce development and innovation. Our session brings together leading voices from academia and industry to share insights into AI adoption, cybersecurity, governance, and continuous learning. So let's set the stage. Here's a quick overview of today's program. Our first speaker is Professor Ian Meredith, AM, Vice-Chancellor Professorial Fellow at Monash University. Ian will be sharing insights from AI governance from the board perspective, the view from the top. Our next presenter will be La Trobe's very own AI adoption and engagement lead, Ali Juma. Ali will be discussing real-world lessons from the front line of AI adoption in education, including honest insights into what is working, what is messy, and what continuous learning really looks like. Jakub Zverina, our program manager from CyberCX, will be the next speaker. He will discuss how AI is changing the rules of engagement when it comes to cybersecurity. Following individual presentations, there will be a panel discussion featuring all of today's presenters. During this session, you'll be able to submit questions to our esteemed panel. So come with your queries and leave with practical takeaways that you can use in your own work. We want to hear from you. To close out the webinar, we will be introducing La Trobe's new micro-credential, AI Foundations for Innovation. Monica Knoll from La Trobe Professional will explain how this course can help individuals and businesses continue their learning journey beyond today's session. All sounds good? I'm looking forward to it, so let's get started. Our first speaker is Professor Ian Meredith, AM, who's Vice-Chancellor Professorial Fellow at Monash University. Ian brings a wealth of experience in leadership and governance, and today he'll be sharing his perspectives on AI governance from the boardroom, offering strategic insights into how organizations can navigate the ethical and operational challenges of AI. Ian, over to you.
Jane, thank you very much, and Monica, Jakub, Ali, great to be sitting alongside you. So it really is a pleasure to give you some thoughts on how I see AI as actually impacting the boardroom, and I'm going to focus a little bit on health and life sciences and health tech companies because that's the area that I'm actually in. But it's absolutely clear that AI is really transforming healthcare. There's no doubt how you look at it. It's making perhaps the biggest change we've seen, certainly in my life in healthcare. It's changing diagnostics. It's changing our understanding of precision, personalised and preventative care. And it's influencing everything from public health, clinical research, right through to the administration of healthcare, the financing of healthcare and supply chains. So it's enormous. And that's simply because, as we all know, it's the ability to integrate diverse layers of both structured and unstructured data. And in healthcare, that includes electronic health record data, images from diagnostic tests you might actually have, laboratory data, wearable data, genomic, proteomic data, and also the social, digital, and environmental determinants of health. So that data is being able to be used to make extraordinary insights, and that requires significant governance. Now, it's important to point out that the FDA, the regulatory agency in the US, between 2018 and 2024, actually approved more than 1,000 AI-enabled medical devices. So, and there are hundreds of new applications each year for drugs that are being developed based around AI. So I think it's profoundly influencing health tech innovation, particularly med tech, and the creative thinking that goes with it. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is just sort of a snapshot of the things that, as a board of a company, particularly in the healthcare space, you have to think about it. And I know my two colleagues here are going to speak about some of those. So I just want to touch on, and this, for those of you, you can read through and think about all these things. But at a board level, we're thinking about all of these aspects of AI in the governance of an organisation. And I want to touch mainly on strategic direction, equity and disparities in healthcare, and then finally on talent, culture and AI fluency at a board level, very briefly. Now, what's happened with the development of AI is that most health and life sciences companies have moved away from being transactional, that is, making a pacemaker and delivering it when you have a slow heart rate, or a coronary stent if you've got coronary artery disease, or a hip replacement, to thinking less transactionally, or cross-sectionally, and more longitudinally, because now you've got these platforms of data that you can bring together and acquire data from implants that you might put in. So the opportunity to actually influence healthcare parallel to the course of human life and parallel to the course of the disease is really transforming the whole health tech industry. And that's probably the big strategic change that AI has impacted on health technology companies. I won't go through R&D because that's a whole topic in itself. I just want to touch on equity and health disparities, because of course the data that we bring into the models to create AI determines their applicability and translatability. And so one of the important aspects of governance is going to make sure that whatever we do doesn't actually reduce health equity and increase disparities. It's got to be the models and the data that we actually use have to be so diverse and so all-encompassing that we actually amplify and improve health equity and diminish health disparities. And again, each of these is a topic, but I thought I'd put them up because they're important to understanding how a board actually thinks. But perhaps the last point here is the most important. Every board I serve on, when we look at reviewing board capabilities, everybody makes the same comment. Talent, the right culture, and AI fluency is absolutely critical to a modern board, particularly in healthcare. I just want to show you, if I can, I work with an AI company in the US, an incredibly good one, and this company is working on this simple ECG. Now, I'm sure all of you at some stage in your life have had an ECG, and for those of you who are listening, you may or may not have had that, but you'll have seen it on TV, or you know somebody's had it. And this is a standard 12-lead ECG tracing. And for many, many years, we've had very basic machine learning that could actually give you the sort of interpretation that a cardiologist of 10 years experience might be able to provide you. And so I can look at that ECG after 35 years of practicing as a cardiologist and say, this is what this actually shows. And machine learning can certainly do that as well. And I won't go through the interpretation of that. But where AI has really made an astonishing difference is not just seeing what the eye can see and doing it faster and smarter and more reliably, but it's seeing what the eye will never be able to see. So this company I'm working with, Anumana is a Sanskrit word meaning inference, which is inferring something from another source of data. So it's a wonderful name for the company. They've used 11 million granular, continuous, deep medical records that have run continuously over 20 years. So you have patients that have ECGs at various points in their life, and you've got all this other related structured and unstructured data and images and so forth that tell you what does that ECG that they might have had 10 years ago actually mean. So it's an extraordinary time. And so that ECG that I might have actually said is just a normal ECG, we can now say, well, we can say the sex of the ECG, say that the person was a female. We can actually say their physiological age, whether they're actually older than their chronological age. We can actually have a probability that they have reduced ejection fraction, that's reduced heart function. You can get an estimate of their likelihood of developing future arrhythmias like atrial fibrillation. You can also predict right now, without any other tests, whether or not they have underlying coronary artery disease or heart failure with preserved ejection fraction or some other less favourable condition, all from a basic ECG. So this creates a number of challenges, and perhaps we can discuss those later. But approving these technologies requires a deep understanding of what role they're going to play and how they'll change and impact the delivery of healthcare. And this is the sort of role a board really has. I do want to make a couple of final comments. One, I think that overall, AI-enabled technologies in healthcare lags behind other AI fields. There are critical gaps in leadership, there are critical gaps in education and training of healthcare professionals to fully understand and appreciate AI technologies. While the technologies are being developed by incredibly intelligent organisations, they're thrust into the healthcare arena where there is essentially very little primary understanding of the technologies. It's a fragmented landscape, often lacking depth, consistency and harmony in multimodal data integration. And by that, I give you the Australian example where not every hospital has electronic medical records, even though many centres around the world have run continuous electronic medical records for 20, 25, 30, even 40 years in the northeast of the US. And so this fragmentation is also compounded really by a general digital lag in healthcare. And that's related to a number of factors: data privacy, patient safety concerns, equity definitions, legal IT systems being out of date compared to other industries, and overall the infrastructure. So we've got a long way to improve this. My final comment really is to say, as I've already said, this is one of the most exciting and promising developments in healthcare in my lifetime, and I've seen a lot of change in the last 50 years. But I think AI advances and AI-enabled technology must be matched by more sophisticated efforts to evaluate and understand how AI performs across healthcare to ensure that it remains safe, effective and trustworthy. And it all begins with education.
Thank you, Ian. That was really interesting and really the view from the top when thinking about using AI in organizations. So our next speaker is Ali Juma, who is the AI Adoption and Engagement Lead here at La Trobe University. Ali is the driver behind La Trobe University's Gen AI adoption success story. A strong believer in learning and growth, Ali brings the spirit of Jidoka, which means automation with a human touch, to AI adoption, ensuring people remain in control while technology serves human potential. His approach is grounded in curiosity, ethics, and continuous learning, and he works closely with partners like Microsoft to turn this vision into reality. Ali, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jane. It's so good to be actually here. Ian did talk about the health industry. I think that's an amazing opportunity for AI to be implemented in there. That is a high level. What I want to take the audience here to a lower level, which is what actually happens on the ground when it comes to adoption. So I'm just want to talk about a couple of things, which is probably what I want to make a public announcement that, in my opinion, all AI adoption is in a draft. This is a learning experience for all of us, and it's actually a time of experimentation. I just want to start with the premise that AI adoption is messy, especially when we talk to individual team members, and we've seen that again and again that whilst the advertisement and the hype is really polished, that AI is going to transform people's lives, when it comes to adoption, it's actually really messy when we talk about what that means to an individual. What we've seen again and again, and my experience is grounded in over 200 hours of learning with my colleagues here in the university. We have learned a lot, and we've realized that when we talk about adoption, it's not going to be a straightforward process, and therefore we actually need to show the highest level of empathy when it comes to AI adoption. The second piece that I want to talk about here is that we have to be really mindful about something called the learning curve. And the learning curve is that, and I'm going to be specific here on generative AI. When we work with generative AI, the experience at the start may feel clunky. And also sometimes we've realized that working with generative AI, actually doing it with generative AI may take you longer if you were doing it on your own. Why? Because there's something called context engineering. The more context you give to your generative AI capability, the better it knows you. And I'll give you an example of that. When you go to a cafe, if you're going to say, "My coffee, please," you might get the coffee that you want, or you might not. That is actually prompt engineering. But if you talk about context engineering, you can say, "I would like an oat milk in a large cup, and it's extra hot, and I've got 5 minutes before the train arrives." That's called context engineering. I'm actually giving it more information. So imagine that actually over a period of time. And that's what I'd like people to start thinking about. Perseverance here really helps. And that's why you move from this capability actually gives me generic responses versus somebody that can work with the capability on an ongoing basis. Really an important piece. And that continuous practice, you're basically training the capability on your preferences and the way you think as well, which is really the most important piece in here. Alfred Gosbesky in 1933 has written a book, and then he's coined this term, which is actually a systems-based term. The map is not the territory. We see so many times, you see LinkedIn now full of articles around AI and actually the transformative power of AI. But when you come to the territory, it's actually a completely different story. And what we've seen here from our experience is that when people take their own individual maps and go to the territory, the beautiful thing that each one of us starts building our own map based on the territory that we see. Meaning my context will be different from Ian's, will be different from Jakub's and Monica's. So it's really important that whilst the map is important, it's only a guide. The best learning experience we see people enjoying is actually going to the territory and actually experiment. That experimentation spirit is really important for all of us in whatever capacity we actually work in there. It's really important also to mention here the role of the leadership. But the leadership can give you the map, but then they have to give you the space for everyone to actually experiment with that map. And that comes, all of us hear a lot about psychological safety. It is far more important to actually focus here around the adoption of this particular capability. So I cannot emphasize that there's a lot of hype about AI in there. Get to the granular details and dial up your curiosity, because that's really the most important thing for us in here. And I want to talk next around the radical empathy for change. What is a change empathy? Is actually us seeing what our colleagues and the user are actually going through. An important piece. So many times have we heard the question, will this replace my job? Are we humans going to lose our human touch? I actually think we need to double our humanity when it comes to AI adoption. Especially if you are a people leader, that's the time when you need to show the radical change empathy in here. Why? Because that's the only way we create the space, the safety, the experimentation, and we need, most importantly, to give people time with this. AI is not a feature, it's actually a capability. Hence the webinar here. The title is a disruptive nature of AI. And therefore, if we really strongly believe as leaders and business owners that this is going to disrupt the workplace, what can I do as a leader to actually offer that space for my people to start experimenting with this particular piece? So that radical empathy is so important. And then I want to shift gear now and talk about that all AI knowledge is in a draft. And if somebody's, there's a term what I call now, I used to dislike that term. You hear people saying it depends, but it's actually very applicable now in the age of AI when we talk about it depends. And so many people actually talk about, will AI give me productivity gain? And then we say, well, it depends. It depends on how much time you're going to spend working with AI, how much space you give your people to actually, and you need to define what productivity is in the first place. So that's really the important piece that I want to leave the audience with. And the question that I want to leave, if the audience here online, if some of them are people leaders, the question to them will be, what are you doing today to offer your people the space and the safety to actually experiment? But at the same time, it's a mutual responsibility. The question to all the individuals, what permissions are you actually giving yourself to allow yourself to explore this capability? So that's really important. It's a two-way game for us to actually explore this capability. And that's what I wanted to share with all of you today.
Thank you, Ali, for sharing actually the fascinating aspects of the AI journey at La Trobe University. Now we're going to hear from Jakub Zverina, who's the program manager at CyberCX. He's responsible for the cyber workforce growth and partnerships. Jakub is a tech professional with over 20 years experience across cybersecurity, IT service management, digital transformation, and operations management in public and private sectors. Over the last few years, he has been supporting the build of technical capabilities and workforce planning at CyberCX, Australia's largest force of cybersecurity experts. Today, he's taking us to the cyber front lines, exploring how AI is transforming the rules of engagement in digital defense and why staying ahead of these changes is critical for every organization. Jakub, over to you.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure joining you all today. And I think what you've said is absolutely spot on. AI is very much draft. It's getting a lot of attention. It's almost impossible to go to any sort of conference or talk without AI coming to the conversation at some point. But one of the things that everybody's talking about is what's the impact of on jobs? What's the impact on skills? And not sure if any of the listeners were around when computers first started appearing, but that was the promise then as well, is we're going to lose our jobs. Computers are going to take our jobs. We're going to be working a 3-day working week. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm definitely not working a 3-day working week. So the real question then is, what is the actual impact? What does it mean for organizations? What does it mean for individuals? What do we need to do to start preparing? So I think the first thing to acknowledge is, from a cybersecurity perspective, we want AI, we want to adopt AI, but we need to make sure that we do it safely. And it's a very low barrier of entry. It's a great thing if we want people to learn. It's accessible. Anybody can play around with AI. But that also means that our adversaries have the same access. Traditionally, we had a lot of infrastructure in place. It was hard to get in. AI has reduced some of those barriers. So it's a real double-edged sword. We're seeing a lot more attacks automated through the use of AI. We're seeing advanced evasion techniques facilitated by AI, and we're also seeing information operations. On the defensive side, however, it's also given us capabilities. So we now have the ability to be more proactive. We have enhanced detection and response capabilities, and we have some new improved security measures. Now, even though it's a double-edged sword, even though both sides have the same capabilities, we're not comparing apples with apples. It's not a level playing field. We have rules, we have regulations, we have ethical standards. Our adversaries don't. So if they try something and don't get it right, there's no repercussions. So there's, I guess, an impetus for organisations to adopt AI, but as they adopt AI, they need to be a bit more careful about how they do that. Now, what are adversaries trying to do? There are attacks conducted using AI, but AI as a technology itself is actually something that's increasingly being targeted. And adversarial aims around disruption, deception and disclosure of data are becoming more increasingly common. And the typical attack vectors when we're actually looking at AI is the data itself, the models, the interpretation of the data, and the inputs and outputs. The real question that organisations need to be asking is this something new? And it's not. It's been around for a long time. There's the AI incident database website. There's over 1,000 incidents there. And funnily enough, even though AI is getting all the media attention today, the first incident was actually recorded over 40 years ago. So this is nothing new. Like machine learning has been around for a long time. We've seen incidents for a long time. We are, however, seeing an absolute explosion in the number of AI incidents. And what's interesting about that is the nature of those incidents. So there's different types of incidents. And what we're actually seeing now is that it's not necessarily affecting an individual or an organisation. A lot of these incidents now actually have real national security implications. We need to start thinking about consequence management for the economy because there's so much interconnection between organisations. Everything's interconnected online. If one organisation is targeted or impacted, that actually has downstream effects. There's second and third order effects which actually affect everybody. So in terms of what do we do about this? Step one, have an AI strategy. A lot of organisations have just been sold on the dream. They've gone out and purchased something. They haven't actually developed a policy around AI, a strategy around AI. Once it's implemented, we need to continuously monitor that environment. We need to actually make sure that we have safeguards and we have guardrails in place for AI. As we start becoming more reliant on AI and it becomes a business enabler, we also need to factor that into our business continuity planning. What happens when the AI fails? What happens when AI is unavailable? And as Ali's pointed out, awareness and education is key. And we talked about AI literacy, but I think even more fundamental is the concept around data literacy. A lot of individuals don't have a concept around data literacy. What is sensitive data? What happens if that data is exposed? What's the value of that data in isolation versus in aggregate? So I think starting off with data literacy and then working into AI literacy is actually the critical path here. The other thing is we don't want to just go out and buy everything with AI badged on it. We need to think about, is this actually contributing to our business strategy? Is this actually helping us achieve organisational outcomes? Does this make sense? What's the opportunity cost of that AI? So we only really want to invest in things which are going to enhance our capability or add to that value chain. And then finally, even with the best safeguards in place, the best cybersecurity measures, we don't know what we don't know. So it's still important to go out and do proactive activities like threat hunting, looking for the unseen. What happens when that edge case presents itself and we don't have the playbook? Now, if you don't know where to start, the good thing is the MITRE Foundation have produced what's called the MITRE Atlas. It's a great reference point, basically details the different tactics and techniques adversaries use. And then it also starts introducing potential mitigations. So when we talk about guardrails or safety considerations, a lot of that work has already been done for you. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Yes, it's all in draft, but there is good guidance out there available. Now, pivoting from the cybersecurity aspect to skills, again, it's a double-edged sword. AI has introduced this ability to do just-in-time learning, continuous learning. Traditionally, we'd take people offline for a couple of days to go on a course. Sometimes the course may or may not be relevant for individuals. However, we now have the ability to leverage AI to do dynamic skills assessments, identify where people's capability gaps are, develop training specifically for them. And that training can also be interactive hands-on training. And we can then assess that capability, and unlike a certification which relies on a bank of exam questions which invariably get leaked online and people study the exam questions and answers and then pass the exams, these questions are dynamically generated, so we can actually assess in real time, has this person actually built that capability? The other thing it does is actually reduces some of those barriers around diversity and inclusion. So when we think about some of the unconscious biases that creep in at various parts of the organisation, AI can actually help remove some of those biases. So there are HR platforms, for example, which strip down a candidate and remove any identifiers, takes them right down to the skill level so that we are actually comparing apples with apples. At the same time, we have people from culturally, linguistically different backgrounds. We have people who are neurodivergent and may or may not be effective at communication or enjoy communication. AI tools can now actually support us across all of that. Now, on an individual level and at an organisational level, the question is, what does this mean for me? And a lot of that rhetoric, like I mentioned earlier, is around, well, AI is going to take my job. Now, I'm going to put the truth out there and call it what it is. What it's actually going to do is change the nature of how we do the work. It's how we apply the skills. There are some new skills, some skills will go, but the majority of skills will actually stay. And what we're actually doing is transitioning the workforce from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. Now, if you're not sure where to start with that, using a framework, a skills framework like the Sophia framework, where you can actually look at each of the skills and look at the different levels of responsibility across those skills, that articulates the tasks that you would need to be able to do to apply that skill at various job levels. Now, what AI is going to do is it's going to remove a lot of those lower level skills, so the level ones, the level two, they are the things that are easy to automate. They are the things that we will see a reduction in. What we're trying to do is push the workforce into those higher order thinking skills, which are those higher levels. The unfortunate thing about that is if you're applying for entry-level positions, a lot of those entry-level positions, the barrier of entry is actually increasing.
Thank you, Jakub. That was very interesting on really AI and cybersecurity and impact on workforce. So we've come to the end of the individual presentation. So to all our speakers, Ian, Ali and Jakub, thank you very much for coming today and for sharing your perspectives on AI disrupting the workplace. We're now going to move into the panel session. So audience, this is your time to submit your queries through the Q&A chat function. And then we can, bring some of them forwards to our panel. So maybe I'm going to start off with a couple of general ones because we've covered a really broad range of topics and perspectives which have been really interesting. So we're talking about AI that's going to be really a reality in many ways. So when people are thinking about deploying AI in their organizations, what are the risks and benefits? We touched on it a little bit, but I think, some of it's real, some of it's not real, some of it's serious, some of it's less serious. So maybe we can start, and I'll be really interested in all of your thoughts. Maybe we can start with you, Ian.
Yeah, so it's a big topic actually, Jane, that one. I think as I gave an example of the standard ECG, some simple, very low-cost test, that now you have deep insights into the test that the eye would never actually see. It doesn't take away from the need to somebody to do that test, somebody to use that test and treat the patient, but it's providing insights that you would hitherto not have been able to have. And for the standard machine learning that we already have with 12-lead ECG, it just means that there's more accuracy, reliability, and fewer misdiagnoses or misinterpretations. And that applies right across medicine to whether you're looking down a microscope at a biopsy specimen from breast cancer or bowel cancer to making sure that the diagnosis is right more of the times and less grey. And so, or whether you're looking at images on a screen during an operation or a procedure. So I don't see AI taking jobs per se, but actually improving the accuracy, the capabilities and the time spent doing a procedure. And I think the important thing, and you both touched on this in a different sort of way, is that, you know, I was more than 40 years in medicine. I'd say almost everything I learned in medical school has either been rejected, refuted, replaced, or completely relegated to the past. The things that I wasn't taught in medical school, and thankfully I grew up in a family that did have all those skills, was kindness, caring, compassion, empathy. And so it is my deep belief that if we're not spending so much time actually typing notes and actually clicking boxes in an atomic screen database of patient information, that the very skills that we should be using in healthcare can come to the fore, as you're saying, higher order skills. And I think the thing that's missing in healthcare is time to actually deliver kindness, caring and compassion. And so although that sounds rather soft, they're incredibly important assets in healthcare. So I think the AI and Gen AI revolution is going to actually take away and automate some of those very basic time-consuming functions. It's also going to provide precision, but it should enable us time to do the thing that healthcare should really do well in the first place. It isn't done well. Simple acts of kindness and caring.
Thank you, Ian. What about the risks? What do you think the risk could be if we deploy AI?
So both, Jakub actually touched on some of the risks. There are big scary risks, like if you have an implantable defibrillator or a pacemaker or an insulin pump that is actually on some form of biofeedback loop with your phone or through the cloud to a service provider. There's real risks that chain of information can be disrupted, and your pacemaker could be reprogrammed, your defibrillator could be reprogrammed, your deep brain stimulator could be reprogrammed. So I think there's the cyber risks are particularly important. The other point that I would say is that as we develop these diagnostic algorithms, it really depends on the quality of the data that is actually used to generate the primary test set and then the analysis set to make sure that there is the level of specificity and sensitivity, positive and negative predictive value of the capability to really be able to deliver the information correctly almost all of the time. So I think there's a variety of risks. I did love Ali's comment about it's in draft form. We're definitely in draft form, but we're going to improve as we go forward. And
thank you, Ian. I'll be interested in your thoughts too, Ali, risk benefits of AI.
Look, I'd like to start with the people side of it. First of all, if supported by an organization and also supported by individual-led curiosity and experimentation, it can actually help you even improve an employee experience. It can actually decrease the level of stress on many tasks, actually, done properly. And also, if I'm an individual within an organization and I know that my leadership is giving me the space to experiment and I'm safe with this, that's probably a good pathway to helping me adopt this positively. Remember, there's a lot of noise in the market, and it's so important for the leadership to start thinking about what are the signals that I can guide my people through it. The inverse still applies. If I leave this and I'll be chasing every shiny thing happening in the market, this is the time when our people look up to the leaders. And then the leaders will have to offer some sort of, a framework for people. in my opinion, the best way to actually go about it, especially when the technology is improving almost every day, and you can't catch it, is actually so far ahead. Have some principles in place to adopt the technology. Principles based on trust, experimentation, and a level of empathy. If you actually follow these, things will be fine with your people. Jim Collins, in his book From Good to Great, he's got those two images. You either would like to be a fox or a hedgehog. The fox is always fascinated by what the noise and the lights happening around them, and they never have a sort of a straight line, or at least an idea or a direction. A hedgehog, on the other side, has got a level of direction in there. And so we would like to think that we are in the in-between times when this animal becomes maybe a bit of a fox and a bit of a hedgehog.
Thank you. It's very interesting. Jakub, I'd be interested in your thoughts. Risk benefits of AI.
Yeah, I've got a few points on this actually. So I really like what you said about how it's changing in the medical field, particularly around reduction of the administrative sort of low value creation activities. And you mentioned about some of those human traits, and I think that's a key thing going forward for organisations and for individuals, is to consider, well, we're probably not going to need so many technical skills into the future, right? A lot of these technical things, AI is going to start handling some of those. So the question then is, well, what are the skills in demand? And it's those skills that make us inherently human. It's creativity, it's innovation, it's adaptability, it's resilience. So I guess the future is actually people that can display those sorts of skills and bring those to the front. I'll reframe the risk piece, I'll put it in a more positive light. And I think the opportunity here, especially while it's in a draft form, is kind of like workplace health and safety. Why did that come in? People died, so we introduced workplace health and safety measures. You're going out and using a tool, here's some PPE, and it's the same with AI. It's a tool. So what's the PPE for that? The PPE for that is AI literacy, it's training and awareness, it's how do we actually use it safely. And even though it's in a draft form, to draw another analogy, think about a carpenter, the classic saying, measure twice, cut once. That's the same thing we should be doing with AI. Is if we do go out, if we do experiment with AI, we need to have the right infrastructure in place so that people can do that safely. Sandbox environments, needs to go through rigorous testing, needs to be secure by design, and then we can implement.
Thank you. That was all fascinating. Now, we've got some questions also that have come in through the chat. So I'm going to actually read one of them. It says, in terms of productivity and workplace innovation, what are some of the ways of measuring this? And interestingly, as we all know, productivity in one part of the organization may create work in another part of the organization. So maybe we can start with you, Jakub, and come this way.
Yeah, it's definitely going to create more work for the security people. But I'd like to look at, I guess, well, going back to what I said earlier, there's a lot of AI solutions. It's about what's the right solution for the right problem that we're trying to solve as an organisation. And I actually think there's two parts to this as well. There's the adoption of AI within organisations, and then there's also the sovereign capability aspect. So what are potential industry areas that we're going to spin up through AI? And when we start looking at it from that lens, it's what part of the AI stack are we actually going to compete with? Do we want to become the next Google? Do we want to become the next Microsoft? Or do we actually focus on developing skills in a workforce to do the engineering, to do, AI needs data centers. Who's going to work in a data center? Who's going to develop the user interfaces? So I think there's a lot of potential opportunities. We just need to focus on what's the right part of the stack, and within our organizations, what's the right solution that's actually going to improve the efficiency or add more value to the product or solution that we're producing.
Thank you. From a university perspective, Ali, what's your thoughts on productivity gains?
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody talks about the productivity. Can I just mention that productivity in AI is not a stopwatch. You're not going to roll out a change and all of a sudden you see a productivity gain. So change is situational. You announce a change and you start rolling it out. adoption is actually a mindset and a behavioral thing, and that takes time. That takes time. So we need to move. For example, somebody asked me the other day how many people attended the training. That's not the right measure. How many people started experimenting with the technology is the measure. So we need to change the conversation now. Now, I'm not naive to the fact that it should help with the productivity, but I'm also asking everybody to allow time, because this is a disruptive capability that will disrupt people's workflows. So it's going to take a bit of time to actually adjust, and so productivity will become an outcome that will come over time. The other thing is that it can be productive to me today, but then it will take Jakub maybe a couple of weeks, because we all come at this within our own context and experimentation.
Ian, your thoughts from the kind of board level?
Yes. I think Ali touched on an important point about the difference between the delivery of a system and the implementation and adoption of it. I think that's very important. I think from a board level, I think you don't want to be measuring productivity in cold hard economic terms of work output for dollars achieved. I think in healthcare, I think can we deliver things more safely, more effectively, and productivity in the terms of, is it more equitable, is it more accessible, are we diminishing the disparities in society for basic healthcare needs? So I would say, in the truest form of productivity, used correctly, AI is going to give us the opportunity to become more productive, as long as the measures of productivity are along the lines of those I just mentioned.
Thank you. We've talked about people worrying, the concerns about AI, clearly losing jobs. The other one that has come through quite a bit is security of data, cybersecurity. So people are using AI platforms in different ways. What are your thoughts on, how it can be secure, can be done better, or some things to be aware of from your perspective, Ian?
Well, we've got the expert down the end of the table. I
We
think
will get to him.
From my perspective on the board, this is, there was one slide, I didn't have the time to go through all those, but understanding risks and having, as you rightly pointed out, Jakub, a clear policy, develop literacy, both for data and for AI and for security policies. I think it's absolutely critical at a board level that there is this is front and centre in your risk strategy.
Absolutely. The key is actually the education piece. We're going to have to educate our people, and we've seen it again and again. Even adopting AI, during that process, people will start learning about the capability. So education is key, and I know at some stage my colleague Monica will be talking also about some of the learning platforms that we have in here.
Yeah, I think one of the topics that we haven't really explored yet is around regulation. And at the moment, the healthcare industry is very heavily regulated, but in terms of national policy around AI and just broader regulation, we're actually in a good position because we haven't over-regulated like some other jurisdictions have. So we do have a lot of freedom in terms of innovation. We're not stifling productivity. But at the same time, a lot of organisations are kind of in that limbo now where they're not sure. They're not sure how to implement. They're not sure what safeguards they should have in place. So I think going back again to education, it's just understanding those risks, understanding what good looks like, and really not moving too fast. I think we've explored AI technology. We've also explored other technologies. Like this is what we're looking at today. Like we've got quantum, we've got digital identity. There's all these other technologies coming up. And so it's less about what's the technology of today, and it's more actually around how do we manage change? How do we lead organisations and individuals through change? And at a board level, what's the actual risk appetite? Like how quickly do we want to move? What level of risk do we want to accept? We don't want to run too fast, but we don't want to run too slow. There's definitely a lot of FOMO around AI.
Thank you, Ian, Ali, and Juma, and Jakub, for your thoughtful comments and insightful perspectives. We now move into the final segment of today's event. I'm very pleased to welcome Monica Noel from the Professional. Monica is here to talk about the university's new micro-credential called AI Foundations for Innovation. We're speaking about education. This course is online, self-paced course that was developed with input from the School of Computing, Engineering and Maths, Industry Engagement, Executive Education and ACAMI, and is designed to help you develop a foundational understanding of AI, its applications and ethical considerations. Offers hands-on experience with AI tools and prompt engineering techniques to enhance your productivity and innovation potential. So I'm going to hand it over to Monica to tell us all about it.
Thanks so much, Jane. So there's been so much that's led into this. I couldn't have set a better foundation for this. What I really love about AI Foundations for Innovation is that when I speak with organisations about it, they're telling me that the content we're covering is exactly what they need in an AI literacy program. So it's structured into 3 modules, and each of those modules serves a very specific purpose. So the first module is really about the fundamental knowledge that we need to understand in an AI literacy program. So it's an introduction to AI, what AI is, what it isn't, how it came about, what are the different kinds of AI. And understanding those things, as we've already heard as well, helps us understand the inherent bias that might be in the programs and the data that we're feeding into the machine. And we also look at prompting, as you mentioned, Jane, so how prompting occurs and how we can improve our prompting. And we get really hands-on with some activities in there too. Then the second module is really where La Trobe sets itself apart from all of the other AI training that's on the market. This is where we have more than 200 use cases and case studies with real industry practitioners and organisations. So all different kinds of organisations across industry, from NGOs to fintech startups to La Trobe experts that are creating their own AI research through ACAMI and some other areas of the university. And this really helps the learner to put a bit of context around what's happening right now in AI and to understand what's possible for themselves in their personal and professional life. So a bit of inspiration to help them apply that in their working life. And then the third element is a lot of what we've been talking about today. How are we going to set ourselves up so that we have the key knowledge to be ethical and responsible users of AI? So having an awareness of the risk, the strategy that our organisation might be working on, and some models to help us to get where we need to go. So those are the 3 modules, really covering off the key elements of an AI literacy program. And in terms of return on investment for organisations, what I often hear about learning from learning and development teams is, well, how do we prove our ROI, that real learning is actually happening? So because this is a micro-credential, the participants are actually going to be assessed on their capability, and they'll receive a La Trobe University micro-credential to say that we're actually attesting to the fact that these learners have demonstrated the skills and knowledge that is required to pass this program. So it's a really amazing program. For individuals who'd like to enrol in the program, you can utilise the QR code that we're sharing on the screen right now. We're offering a 50% off discount code, and this will be emailed afterwards. So if you don't get the opportunity to scan this code and use the discount code right now, don't be too concerned. But this 50% discount code will bring the program down to $1,100. So it is a large program of learning. It is in-depth because it is a micro-credential, and it's going to give a deep level of understanding of the fundamental concepts. For organisations looking for an enterprise solution, we'd love to work with you on a tailored program. So please reach out to me and we can discuss what we can do for you. We're running facilitated workshops as well as offering the online self-paced program. So we'd love to talk with you, but I'll hand it back to Jane.
Thank you, Monica. That was a really nice overview of the course, and of course, thank you very much for the 50% discount as well. I think that would be really, really useful.
And Jane, can I mention I've actually completed the course and I love it. So,
Fantastic.
and
Thank
nobody
you, Ali.
paid me for this.
Thanks, Ali.
Thank you, Ali, for the comment, and we're really pleased that you did it. We got a real testimony.
Also, unpaid support, but I think that contextualization is key. It's what does this mean for us? Like those case studies, that application to the real world is absolutely invaluable.
Thank you, Jakub. Very nice. Thank you so much. So we're coming to the close of today's webinar. Thank you, everyone, for dialing in. Special thanks to our speakers, Ian, Jakub, Ali, and Monica, and particularly for sharing your expertise and insights. You all come from such different backgrounds, but the discussion has been really tremendous and hopefully very insightful for everyone. I found it personally very interesting and also inspiring as the direction that we're taking with AI. So we welcome your feedback and encourage you to stay connected with ACAMI as we continue to drive innovation in this exciting space. So thank you everyone again, and I now formally close the webinar. Stay safe and well, and see you next time.